started with my Yeah, we're ready to go.
Well, get it going. We're looking at the end time. We started.
Does everyone have this PowerPoint copy?
Yes, I do.
You have one.
Oh, you have one. Okay, now I have. You're welcome to have two. Stay on time.
Yep.
And I'm going to not kill myself.
You don't just stand on the chair. Okay.
No, I feel like I'm trying to get something up and hurt myself. I'll walk into it. Well, welcome everyone. Nice to see your faces this afternoon. Thank you for coming. So how many of you, your students are going in spring of 2018? I was getting it wrong. Fantastic. Do we have any summer 2018s? Okay, boys, you're making my life easy. Do we have beyond? Okay, so we're thinking summer, fall? Fall, 18.
I just don't know if I can make it in the spring.
It's absolutely fine. A lot of the information gets shared over. Yeah. Just if we know, we have some specific links we can share for the spring, but the fall links you get to it almost the same way.
Right.
Great. So how many of you saw us this morning? A lot of people. Fantastic. We're definitely going to go over some of the same things, but very much in depth. So I hope, welcome back to college. It's going to be, got your notes, got your handouts, your PowerPoints, it'll be just like a class. And we're going to get you all the way through this so you know exactly what's going on. So let's start by a few introductions. So I'm Dr. Holly Carter. I think you've had some emails and some information from me. I'm the director of Harlaxton College Programs. And if you saw me this morning, you know my crazy links to Harlaxton Manor. So I was educated, went to the university in Scotland, and I lived and worked in London for 10 years as a university professor. When I'm not doing this, I'm actually a medical sociologist. Don't worry if you don't know what that is. My mom and dad have no idea. I was like, what do you do? So I lived and worked in the UK. My husband is British. He's from about 2 counties over from Harlaxton Manor in Warwickshire. And my nieces and nephews, actually my nephews love the manor. They're pretty convinced that it's my home in the UK, that I actually own the manor. That's just how Americans live when they are there, which is a lot of fun. Oh, great. A lot of people are coming. Oh, wow. A lot more people.
Filling a handout.
Yeah. I put a few on the tables. Did you guys get this one? Oh, there's a lot more people.
There are people
Maybe we can. You guys have a handout? All right, great. So please get comfortable. We're going to take you on a tour. So this is Kaylin. Kaylin, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kaylin Carver. I'm a graduate student doing my master's in international education right now. I actually graduated from U of E in 2016 and went to Harlaxton in spring 2014. So I'm a Harlaxton alum and a UE alum, and really excited to be back in the office. Right now I'm doing a lot of work with Harlaxton Missions, so your students are getting a lot of emails from me about deadlines and all that kind of thing. They see my face in orientation class every other week, so I'm the one teaching that as well. So they're interacting with me a lot. They're great so far, and I'm happy to be here today.
Great. So Kaylin and I, our goal today is over the next stretch of time to take you through everything you need to know. So we're going to do this in kind of a general overview, but we're going to give you a lot of resources. And at the end, if you've looked in the PowerPoint, we give you some great conversation starters with your students, things that they know that would be great to be talking about right now, because we do communicate with your students on a very, very regular basis. I can't say that they communicate back to us always on a regular basis, but we communicate to them on a regular basis. And we do this via the UE email. That's the official communication channel here at the university. And so we email your students a lot. Each one of your students has an online account. That online account they set up when they applied for the program, and all of their work comes through that online account. So all of your students will have that, and will be working through that. We'll be receiving emails through that. And so a lot of the information we tell you today are things that your students have through that account. And we'll mention that. So that way you know, if you say, oh, I went to the orientation today, and you had mentioned this, and your student says, oh, I didn't know that. You say, oh, you could look in your online account. That's what we say a lot. So that would be great for you to know. So we're going to take you from beginning to all the way to the end of Harlaxton, what to expect, what to know, how it works, answer questions, and then hopefully send you this afternoon with some great questions to start talking with your student about. All right, so let's get started. All right, so I want to start with just kind of an overview of what happens with your students before they leave for Harlaxton. So in terms of working with us already, your students, if they're going in spring, are registered in a pre-departure orientation class. All of your students would have purchased this workbook from the UE bookstore. It was $9.90. And it has all of the information they need in it, including the student handbook at the back of it. So this is something that your students should have and should be bringing to class every other week when we meet, and they'll be working through it. And we'll be talking a little bit about it. I think there are a few extras in the bookstore if anybody wanted one. I should say it's terribly exciting because we wrote it. I don't know if it's terribly exciting, but it has a lot of great information in it. So your students come to orientation class every other week. They meet for an hour and a half, and the class provides them both information and then has an exercise at the end of it. So at the end of the first class, we had a reflective exercise on why they wanted to study abroad. The class is meant for your student to both be prepared with logistics, but also to be prepared thinking about what the study abroad experience should mean. In later classes, we do budgets. We do travel planning. So there's lots of opportunities for students to really start to think both about why they're studying abroad and how that will work. And in addition to that, they should be thinking about these bigger questions about what this semester abroad will mean to them. So all of those students, this class has started last week, and students are already coming. So in this pre-departure period, we go through everything with them, and we're going to talk a little bit about that for you today. So in terms of arriving at the manor, your students have been, sent, and also in the workbook, there's information about the flights that they can purchase. So students can go to the manor one of two ways. They can fly to the manor either on a group flight, or they can fly to the manor independently. Now, a group flight is an unaccompanied flight. Like, I'm not on the airplane with them, Kaylin's not on the airplane with them. They are on that flight as a group. And that we have two ways you can purchase that this year. One group flight that Haney Travel sells. Haney's just down the street. That goes through Chicago. The other one is a flight that goes through Atlanta, and that is sold by a STA, which is a huge student travel organization. So either flight your student can take and be with other Harlaxton students, or your student can find a flight and go online, search the internet, find a flight, and come. But they have to arrive at London Heathrow Airport on the arrival day by 10:30 a.m. So your student puts this information into their online account. And it's very important that we get the correct flight information, because on arrival day, we send a team of people, and it's usually me. I get this duty all the time. We get up at about 3 in the morning in the UK. We ride a coach down to Heathrow Airport. We usually wear these shirts, or shirts that say Harlaxton, and we stand in Terminal 3 with signs and clipboards looking for your students. The students will then sort of rendezvous together. We get them together, they come check in. I get lots of hugs as if I'm an old friend and family member. They're there, they've made it. And then what we do is we have 3 coaches, so 3 big buses that go to the manor. So when the students arrive, usually the bus will hold 60. We count to 60. Then that group gets on the bus and goes to Harlaxton. So we say arrive by 10:30. Let's say you find a great flight, but it arrives at 6 a.m. Our team is at the airport by 5:30 a.m. The first coach generally goes around 9. The second coach generally goes at 10. The third coach typically goes between 11:30 and 12. So 10:30 is the time you have to be there by, but if it were earlier, you might get on one of the first coaches. It's about 2.5 hours from the manor, from the airport to the manor. So a lot of that is not miles, it's London traffic. We have to go through London. So it's about 2.5 hours until they arrive at the manor. So the best thing about the arrival at London Heathrow has completely free Wi-Fi. They can get right on their phone and tell you they're there. And then you don't have to call either of us. It's fantastic. So guess what we run around the airport telling them to do? Please call mom and dad, please call mom and dad, please call mom and dad. Let them know you're there. So they'll arrive at the manor, they'll arrive at Heathrow, hopefully connect with you, and then they will take that bus ride. They almost all fall asleep, and then we wake them up right as we come up to the manor. It's a beautiful view as you drive up to the manor for the first time. When they arrive at the manor, they're actually greeted. It's the one and only one time you actually walk through our front door. The rest of the time the front door's locked. We have a huge front door, and so it's the one and only time you walk through. You're greeted by the principal and the rest of the Harlaxton team. You go up our beautiful main staircase into a beautiful room where you're welcomed and given a pack of information. It's at that moment in that pack of information that students find out where they're living, their actual room assignment. And they're given several things. They're given an ID. At Harlaxton, we all wear IDs now, just like the UE ID card, but it's a Harlaxton ID card. Students are given that, their room keys, their mail keys, information on what to do in case there's an emergency the first night, and then we take them and feed them a little bit of lunch, and then they have some time to get settled as we bring the other 3 coaches in. Then the first events are that evening where we have a get-together and we kind of get them started, play a few games, introductions, so they know what's going on. The students spend that afternoon running around the manor, taking pictures, getting settled, meeting their roommates. Getting lost is probably the most common thing that happens that day. But the other amazing thing about getting to the manor is in that packet they get their internet, their Wi-Fi code. So they can, once again, connect with you at no cost. It's fantastic. So they, at that moment, the manor has fantastic Wi-Fi. They can connect and they can FaceTime you, walk you around the manor. They can send you a text message. They can call you, email you, whatever it is they're doing. So they can certainly connect with you at that moment. From that point, we actually put on a 3-day welcome orientation. So students are welcome to the manor Friday, Saturday, Sunday with a series of events. These events are meant for students to both understand the manor, the culture, the expectations. We have a big session on how to not burn down the manor. We have a big session on how to make friends, how to become global citizens, and we have a lot of really fun stuff too. One night we have a Ceilidh, which is a Scottish dance, and we put that on and we bring in people that teach them how to dance. And then another night we have what's called a high table dinner, which you may not be familiar with. It's a British tradition where the faculty members and administrators sit at tables that are actually higher than the students. And so that is preceded by convocation, where the faculty are led in their robes into a great hall by a piper. Then we have welcome speeches, and we have a beautiful waiter-served dinner, and that's when the students will find out what houses they've been sorted into. So in terms of having both amazing traditions, beautiful ceremonies, incredible dinners, we welcome the students with song, dance, and food. On Sundays, there's church service, the village church. So the village, Harlaxton Village, is quite small. The church there puts on a welcome ceremony where you can go down and all of the people in the village make us cookies, and we go down there and talk, and they explain what Anglican church is, and they're very welcoming. But we also offer shuttles to any denomination within the Grantham area. So students can sign up on those shuttles and go to church on Sunday mornings. And then we have events throughout the afternoon. And then straight away following on that Monday, we start classes. So it's big, it's busy, it's tradition, it's really full. But students, again, have that ability to communicate, to let you know what's going on in the manor. This is sometimes a really, to me, this time of being at the manor is harder for the parents than it is for the students. The students are in awe, that's amazing, it's this huge building, and I've just met somebody who's my roommate, and mom and dad are like, are you okay? Why aren't you calling me? You're not texting me. And so I think this time when they arrive is harder for you, especially if they're really busy and really involved and forget to send you a few messages and things. So that time I think is a great time to talk about, and we've got these suggestions later, but a great time to talk about, like, before they go, hey, let's talk about how we're going to communicate this first couple of days. I need to know you arrived at the airport. I need to know that you met the Harlaxton team. I need to know that you are actually at Harlaxton Manor. Okay? And so making that clear, I think, helps the parents a lot. The other scenario I see sometimes at this point in time is that students are so overwhelmed they'll call you crying. And they'll say, what have I done? This is just so hard, and I don't know my roommate, and I'm lost in the manor, and I'm in England, and I'm jet lagged, and I don't know what to do, and I just need, it would be fine if I just came home, right? And so sometimes we have those phone calls too, and we always encourage the students. For one, if you've ever flown, and I fly back and forth to England about every month, the jet lag can make you do funny things.
Right.
It just makes you feel very strange. I'm not a person who cries a lot, and I'll get to Harlaxton on a really jet-lagged day, and I'll be like, what, spaghetti for dinner? This is the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it's weird, I'm not that kind of person. But the jet lag can be really a funny thing. So making sure that you're encouraging to them, tell them to get some sleep, ask them if they've been eating, and then continuing to have that conversation with them. So one of two things can happen, but we often see it the other way, where the students are busy and mom and dad are nervous. So we just think it's great if you could make clear those expectations on communication. When they get to the manor, they're each assigned a room with a roommate, so they may be living in the manor or the carriage house. The carriage house, you lived in the carriage house, didn't you?
I did live in the
Yeah.
carriage house.
Carriage house to manor time to walk.
Like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I actually liked being in the carriage house better because then I wasn't in the same house all the time for everything. I got to like go outside sometimes.
So the carriage house is a building that's on our property. It is probably a 3-minute walk to the manor, and students live in the carriage house or the manor. The rooms are almost identical. So when they get there, their room will have all of the bedding and linen they need. So they have a pillow, they have sheets, they have a duvet, so like a bedspread, and they have one towel. I spend my life talking about this towel. It is only one towel. And you know what they sell in England? Towels. I promise you they sell towels. I bought them. So yes, so this towel often becomes quite the point of conversation. That is what is given to them in their room when they get there. So they have all of this in their room, so they don't need to pack any of that. In fact, British beds are actually different sizes than American beds. So I've seen people pack sheets and take up all that space, and it doesn't even work. So we encourage you, if you did want something else, to purchase it in England. But that's what the students have, so they do need to bring some toiletries. We recommend they bring travel size, because on the second day of orientation, we run buses back and forth to the local town. The local town is called Grantham, and Grantham has amazing things in it. One of which is a store called Asda, ASDA, and Asda is actually owned by Walmart. And you can buy anything in Asda. So we actually encourage the students to come, acknowledging that there's one towel and one pillow, and you've got travel shampoo for a day or two. And then to go into Asda to buy your shampoo, to buy your soap, to buy your laundry soap, to buy that extra towel, to buy that extra pillow. And we actually run buses back and forth every hour. We run a big bus, and so they can purchase all of those things.
Do beds have blankets?
Sorry?
Do the beds have blankets?
So a duvet is rated for warmth, so it works differently. So when you buy a duvet in the UK, they're rated for the time of year, and the duvets on the bed are actually very warm. So you typically don't have a blanket. Sometimes a student will buy like a blanket to sit in the manor with, like a black blanket, I guess you'd call that. But you're usually perfectly fine. In fact, I'm always a little warm at the manor. Yeah. The manor does have radiators for heat. There's no air conditioning, but it's really never needed in the UK. And I tend to find the manor quite warm. Yeah, in those types of bedrooms. So that's what's for them when they come. So each of the rooms will have a sink in the room. Bathrooms are down the hall, so there's a row of showers, and then there's cubicles with toilets in them. So they'll also want to think about how they're going to carry stuff down the hall and how they're going to do that. Most of them buy like a shower caddy at Asda that first day like they would do here in the States. And there's our one infamous towel on the bed. And they also each have that closet that you can see there where they can store their clothing. Their suitcases tend to go on top of it or underneath it or under the bed depending on your bed. Everybody also has a desk that they can work on and keep their books, a nightstand with a light, and a bulletin board so they can personalize their room. So if they want to take posters or pictures of the dog, pictures of mom and dad, we love for them to do that, and that's how they personalize the room. Roommates will typically be from other partner colleges. So roommates aren't necessarily the people that they know here at UE. And we do that on purpose, and so it's an opportunity to meet someone new. So more than likely, they will not know their roommate, and that's an opportunity for them to meet someone new at the manor. So another great conversation starter, where's your roommate from? Where do they go to school? What are they studying? Because it won't be somebody who's their friend, even if they go with a friend. So in terms of packing, what do students need to bring with them? Yeah, there you go. Oh, sorry.
You're like jumping around here, trying to follow.
So students need to bring lots of different things. So most airlines will allow you to pack one suitcase of 50 pounds. And then some students will pay for a second suitcase. I've seen lots of students pay for the second suitcase, but I don't know if it's really that necessary because in addition to all these other things they sell in England, the students really love to buy the clothes there. They're fashionable, they're trendy, they buy at thrift stores, they're very, yeah.
You can come home and say, I bought this sweater in England.
So they tend to actually buy a lot when they're there. So you have to think about condensing that packing and putting it together. But you do need a few dressier outfits. That first meal I talked to you about, you need clothes that would be appropriate for that. So my grandmother would have called it Sunday dress, but I don't know that that's what the kids call it today. But certainly for girls, usually they wear like a dress, and for guys they wear either a button-down shirt with a tie or a suit. And so they will need that a couple times throughout the semester. So in terms of packing, remember that will take space. And then in addition to that, if you use those carry-on toiletries that you'll have for the first couple of days. Laundry is available in the manor, so we have at no cost, so students can wash, and they can go back and forth into the laundry machine whenever they need to. So certainly if they're worried about the number of things they've packed, they can buy things. They can also wash things at the manor. They're available in both the manor and the carriage house, and students can also then buy that laundry detergent there in the UK on that first day shopping trip. And then irons and ironing boards are also provided for them. If your student's a big ironer, it always tends to be the faculty at the irons, but certainly they're there for them. So packing the manor is very casual. In fact, most days, jeans, sweatshirts.
Yep, sweatshirts or sweaters and jeans most of the time.
As it gets through the semester, pajamas a lot. You see a lot of pajamas in the manor.
When you live just upstairs from your classroom.
You just walk down in your pajamas. So yeah, so as the semester goes on, it gets more and more casual. So we do not recommend that students bring a lot of things we need, one or two dressier outfits, very casual things to wear in the manor, buy things when you're in England, and then a really good pair of shoes to wear over, just because there's a lot of walking and it tends to be quite wet. So a great pair of tennis shoes or a great pair of waterproof shoes are what we recommend. So remember, in that suitcase with 50 pounds, you're not putting in any bedding, you're not putting in any towels, you're not putting in big cosmetics or toiletries like shampoo and conditioners and things. So you're kind of putting that all together to get them there. And then they are picked up at the airport and brought to the manor, and during the orientation period they can go and buy more things. Any questions about preparing? Yes?
Things like curling irons or
Great question.
hair dryers.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, we can talk about that a little now. So what happens at the end of every semester is students, right, so you can only go with 50 pounds, which means you can only go home with 50 pounds. And so students all of a sudden want to give us everything. And we collect hair dryers, curling irons, and straight irons every year. And we put those out in a box for students to just take. So when students arrive, there's boxes throughout the manor. They can go and grab those things. We do ask if they don't get one or they don't like the ones we have, that they purchase those in the UK and they don't purchase those in the US and bring them. And the reason is that for those of you who know, the electricity is just different in the UK. It's 220 rather than 110. So if you run 220 into a 110 appliance, smoke. And if you start anything, the manor is so well equipped with a fire system, a fire alarm system, that the moment those things get plugged in, they sort of smoke and puff, and we're all standing on the front yard waiting for the fire brigade to come and turn off the alarm. So we ask that students don't bring those, actually, that they either take from the supply we have or just purchase them at ASDA or that first day in town. So that can save a lot of space as well. Other electronics that people need to plug in, like a cell phone or a laptop computer, they amazingly already have converters in them. All you have to do is change the shape of a plug. So I actually brought my adapter with me today. This is the one I traveled to Harlaxton with. I bought a set of 5 of these on eBay, I believe, for $4, and I travel with them everywhere. So this is the shape of a British plug, and this adapter is what I purchased, and I put 4 or 5 of them in my bag. And you can just take, so my phone, I have an iPhone, I just plug it in like normal into the American plug the American plug into there, and then plug that into the wall, because the converter's already in the iPhone. So these converters are great. If you forget them or your student forgets them, we do sell them for £3.50 at the manor, which is about $5. But I bought like a whole box of them and just had them sent to my house. And I travel with these.
So what would that be called on eBay?
UK travel converter. Yeah. And it looks like this. Yeah.
Do they need their laptop if they didn't bring one? Is there something they can use there, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would recommend taking a laptop, and I'd recommend putting that in your carry-on rather than checking it under the plane. It's heavy and it's expensive. For their laptops, they can use that in classes, and the Wi-Fi's free. And again, laptops have those adapters in them. You just need this converter to plug them in and charge them. If they, for some reason, don't have one or don't want to bring one, we have computer labs at the manor. We also have laptops you can borrow. But most people like them. It's strange, the British keyboard is different from the American keyboard. So if you borrow one of our British ones, people find it hard to type. So most people really like to keep their American ones. Isn't that weird? Yeah, there's no $sign on the British one. Weird, huh? So there's other things that are different places too. Yeah.
What outerwear do you recommend for the January through April?
Great question. So in January, I always take a warm weatherproof coat. Something like I'd wear as a winter coat here in Evansville. 100% recommend something with a hood, something waterproof, because it rains a lot. As it gets into the spring, you need something much more like a lightweight jacket or windbreaker, but also recommending something waterproof with a hood. Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah.
I was in London 2 winters ago, and it was colder than it's ever been in 20 years here.
Yeah.
It was nutty numb. I don't know if that's normal, but it was colder than...
Yeah, to me it's a wet cold, which is a really different cold, and I find myself chilly. In England I do, but I tend to do what I think a lot of students do and wear in layers. So a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, my jeans, a warm pair of shoes, a warm pair of socks, and my coat. The manor is, like we said, heated, so to me that it's always a little bit warm in the manor. But when they're out, certainly that's true. Yeah, I would say pack the outerwear or wear it on the airplane to save that space in your suitcase, so that you save a little bit of that going. Other questions about how we need to prepare to go? Okay, great. So, where should I go next? Sorry, I talked you all right.
We can talk about life at the manor.
We'll talk about life at the manor. How about that? So life at the manor. So what will happen once your students get settled in? So classes are generally Monday through Thursday. So these classes typically meet all day on these days except Wednesday. You may have heard me say that this morning, and we'll talk about that. So in the semester, every student will take a British Studies class. That British Studies class is Mondays and Wednesdays from 8:30 to 9:30. And the British Studies class is taught by our permanent and resident British faculty. So that class will happen on those days, followed by their seminar courses with the same British faculty members. And then they'll usually pick 2 other classes. So most students take 12 hours. Students can take 15 hours, but many students find that challenging at Harlaxton with the travel and also with the differences in the British Studies model. So if you heard me this morning talking about how British Studies works, British Studies is taught in a British lecture style, which is really different for students. So students listen to the lecture, and in a British lecture style, you cannot ask the professor questions. You simply listen for that hour and take notes. Then in the seminar, you interact based on the material. So it's different for students than the model we run here. It's fantastic, and students love it. They get a lot from it. But sometimes that can be a challenge. Did you find British Studies challenging?
Yeah, it's just different. It just takes some getting used to, and it's hard to balance with your travel and all of that.
We hear that a lot from students, actually. So we recommend the 12 hours. And so then the students would have British Studies, and then they take 2 to 3 other classes from visiting faculty. And those would be classes that they take normally Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday afternoons. So we don't run classes on Wednesday afternoons. So students are very involved during the day, taking their classes, going to class just like here. I've got my books, which is also a great side note. We run a textbook sale at the beginning of the semester. So people often say to me, well, we only have 50 pounds and that's a lot of books. You actually really don't take the books to the manor. British Studies textbooks are included in the fee. You just go pick them up. So there's 4 textbooks. You've already purchased them. You just pick them up. Your other classes, there's a book sale, and we have it kind of in the basement. And we've ordered all those books, and students can purchase those during the orientation period. They can purchase that with a credit card. They can purchase it with cash. But certainly they can purchase those. We send out a list beforehand with all of the textbooks and all of the prices. So you would have a very good idea of what the textbook total cost would be. And so students will have those at the manor. Students will then go to classes, take those textbooks around, and they'll be studying during the day. But what happens after we're finished studying? Lots of things happen at the manor. So I told you that we didn't have classes on Wednesday afternoons, and that's to make time for our local culture trips. So these are trips that run anywhere that's sort of an hour travel distance outside of the manor. So great examples of these are things like we go to Leicester, which is a city that's not very far away. It's incredibly multicultural, and also where Richard III's body was discovered, and you can go see where he was buried in this parking lot and the church he's now buried in. We go to Nottingham Forest, which you may obviously know from Robin Hood, and we can go there and see that. So all of these are offered at no cost on Wednesday afternoons. So those trips are completely optional to students. There's a sign up for them, and they can come, they can sign up for those and travel around the local area. What happens typically is in the first week, everyone signs up. We take the whole manor. The second week, we take 3/4 of the manor. By the middle of the semester, we take like 15 die-hard students. And everybody else needs to study or needs to do laundry or is tired. So we love to tell students, look at that list and make some good decisions and go the ones you really want to go to. Those are all included in your package, so we love for students to take those trips. Outside of that, if you've heard me speak this morning, you know that we also operate a house system. That house system is just like you may have seen in Harry Potter. We have 4 houses, And students are magically sorted, we magically sort them here, into a house. And they find out which house they're in at the large convocation dinner. And then they have house competitions where they can gain house points. And then there's things that they can do that make them lose house points. We love them to gain house points. So an example of that would be maybe an athletic competition, or we have open mic nights, or we have a crochet and knitting club where the person who knits the most squares for a quilt that's given to the homeless shelter, their house team wins points. So it's not all athletic and it's not all academic. It's participation, it's creating new things in the manor, and those are very, very, very competitive. People lose points by not checking out on time for the weekend. Maybe if there's a few little issues with things. A good example of that is if we have, say, a hall that's not respecting quiet time, house points can go. So we do a lot of house competitions at least once a week, and all the time the score is displayed and we know exactly who's winning and losing the house competition. We have sports. We have two teams that play in local leagues. We have a basketball team and a volleyball team. Students can volunteer for those, and they play the local British league. And that's a lot of fun. We're the Harlaxton Lions, uniforms and all. We go in a minibus. We go play basketball and volleyball around the county. We're well known for being really good at basketball. So students can volunteer, or when we have home games, students come out and cheer on the team. Clubs and organizations, we have just about any club you can think of. I mentioned crochet and knitting before. This year we have a club that's called Read or Dead, which is a group that's reading plays by dead authors. It's like READ, like Read or Dead. And so students come up with things, or our faculty come up with things, and we have lots of clubs and activities to be involved in. We have a choir, and that's something students can participate in. The choir sings quite often. If you're there in the fall semester, we sing a lot of Christmas carols. In the spring semester, we go to a lot of local nursing homes and places where the choir can sing, and also singing at the manor, and that's really loved in the community. We also have two music groups. We have a woodwind group and we have a strings group, and instruments are at the manor, so you don't need to lug a tuba with you. We have tubas. You don't need to take a violin. We have violins. We do have students who like to take their own instrument, but we certainly have this for you there. We have a gym as well, so students who like to stay in shape. It's got all of those ellipticals, all of those treadmills, free weights room, and then space for people to work out. So we offer Zumba, we offer yoga, and this semester I think they have Insanity at 6 a.m., which is insane, but they go and they love it, and it's a really intense workout, and so that's led by either community members who come in or the students themselves. And then last but not least, we have a Meet a Family program. If you haven't heard about this, it'd be important to maybe have a conversation with your student about. The Meet a Family program are families from the local community that have volunteered. Some of them have had UE students and Harlaxton students for 30 years, 40 years now. And your student doesn't live with this family, but they connect with the family. They go to dinner with them, perhaps go on a few day trips with them, have conversations about life in Britain, life in America. I even have a Meet a Family, and every time I go, I end up at their house just talking about the world, and it's fantastic. They live in the village. I walk down there, I knock on the door, I get greeted like I'm their long-lost child, and they adopted me. So it's fantastic for the students. It is an application process, and that application is due
November 1st.
November 1st. So if your student's interested in this program, they have to complete an application, and then as many students as possible, we pair with a Meet a Family, and then they actually write like an introductory letter to their Meet a Family, and then from the Meet a Family, they'll write back to them. The first event for Meet a Family is always held at the manor. So I don't want you to think like, oh, my child has this family and we're just sending them off with them. It's always at the manor. So when your student goes down to ASDA for that first day, we encourage them to maybe buy like a thing of flowers or something, and then the Meet a Family comes in typically with a little gift, and they have a big dinner together at the manor to make sure the match works and if they have any questions, and so it's not so awkward. each family gets more than one student as well. So you typically are with a group of students when you first meet and when you spend time with the family. Yeah. Any questions about life at the manor? It's busy. It's very busy. Life at the manor is, to me, when I come back from the manor, I feel like I need a vacation. It's so busy. So your students are going to be very, very busy. Yeah, what would you add to that?
I'd say the same thing. It's almost more busy than being here at UE because you all have classes at the same time and you're trying to study and plan your travel and go to all these activities. They keep you really busy, which is really fun. You form a community at the manor too because you're all so close and there aren't as many of you as there are here at UE, so you form this really nice family and you're all going to things and seeing each other all the time.
How many students are there in a semester?
So typically we like to say it's 300 students in a year, so about 150 each semester. Now that doesn't always work magically, 150, 150. So we will have a larger number there in the spring, probably somewhere around 180 students. It's a big semester, it's very popular. That still meets all of our standards. We have 187 beds, so we still have room for, we always have some quarantine rooms, so if somebody has the flu, they get their own special room and meals delivered, so we don't have an outbreak of the flu. So it meets all of those standards. But it's going to be a really busy, really robust semester in the spring.
And there'll be space in all the classes, they'll be confirmed ahead of time.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So UE students actually register just like they register for classes here. And UE students register first. So they get their classes before any partner students go into registration. So your student will register on?
It's sometime the week of the end of October, beginning of November. Just like UE ones, they register at different times based on their class standing. So it's over a set of a few days that they register.
They'll register October 30th through November 3rd. And so they register just like they register for classes here. And we'll go through that process with them in the orientation class. So we go into the online system to show them how to plan their schedules. And so they'll register, then they'll know which classes they have, those will be planned. And then after they register, literally the next week, then partners register. So UE students get first opportunity to get into those classes.
I remember you saying the 3 meals during the day. Are they offered over a period of time, or is it just?
Great question. Let's talk about the refectory. So the refectory is our cafeteria. And I don't know, in British schools they're called refectories. So it's a space that is multi-purpose at Harlaxton. We use it for a lot of things. So the refectory serves 3 meals a day. It serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast is served from 7:30 to 8:30 because of the classes starting, right? We start classes at 8:30. Lunch is served 11:30 to 1, and dinner is served 5:30 to 7. So during that time, the refectory offers a variety of foods. So the way it works is there's a hotline, and the hotline always has a meat option, a vegetarian option, and vegetables. So maybe you go up and it's spaghetti. I was having my crisis over spaghetti, so it's spaghetti night. And so I can have my spaghetti with meatballs or without. And then there's usually something that goes with that, a vegetable and of some description. Lots of potatoes. It is England. Every kind of potato you can think of we have, all the time. A lot of carbs. So we have a lot of potatoes. And then right next to that is a chilled section where there's always a dessert. So that's a very popular section. Just outside is a salad bar. So there's a salad bar like you might see in the cafeteria here, kind of with a cover and it's chilled. And there's always salads that you kind of make so you can pick and choose what you want on it. Then there's usually rolls and options to make a sandwich. There's always bread. There's always peanut butter and jelly. That's very popular. And there's cereal out at every meal, just like our home campus. We have then for them, it's Britain. We have unlimited tea, unlimited hot tea, unlimited coffee. We have juice and water. So we do not have soda at the manor. It's really not very common to have it in England the same way we have it here. So students can eat during those times. The refectory then closes, at 7 o'clock to be cleaned, and it reopens at 9 o'clock as a study area. So from 9 o'clock till about 4 a.m. is the study area. Again, with unlimited access to tea, because in Britain we drink it like night and day. Tea, coffee, juice, and water, unlimited. And so students can go in and study. So the refectory is actually redone about 3 years ago, and it has plugs everywhere so they can plug in. It also has heaters everywhere, so it's a nice warm room. So maybe if they have a group project or they're studying, it's great to go in there at night, and they can sit there and study and charge everything up and be with their friends. It also has a huge projector in there, so the projector sort of comes out of the top of the wall and reflects on a wall sort of like that white wall right there. For those of you in the spring, please know that we do play the Super Bowl live on this huge wall. And we play other important things on the huge wall. Some of you may or may not know that we are a prominent location in a series that's very popular on British TV right now, and that's actually airing on Sunday, the episode that Harlaxton features in, and it will be playing here in the States in the spring on PBS.
What is it called?
So I'm not allowed to say, but you can certainly guess. So we'll be playing that on the big screen as well. Maybe about a British monarch. May have played on Masterpiece Theater. Anyone? Anyone? It wasn't Downton Abbey, actually, so recently. Oh, we're getting warm. Victoria. Yeah, so if you happen to be watching that. So we'll be doing that there too. But in the spring, we definitely do the Super Bowl. If there's something big going on in the U.S. at the time, like we played the election coverage live on the big screen, we play anything that has to do with the manor, anything sports related that the students really want to see, we play that in the refectory as well. So it is open in those lovely times in the evenings for students to get together and study. If your student has any kind of food allergies or any kind of food issues, we cater to any and everything. There is always gluten-free option. Actually, in the UK, it's a law that every time someone serves you food, they have to tell you everything that's in it. It is illegal not to. So even at a restaurant, my sister-in-law is gluten-free, and when we go out and eat in England, she says, I need to see all the ingredients. And they, by law, have to bring her a menu that lists every ingredient. Yeah. So, and the grocery stores have huge gluten-free sections because we're always shopping in there with my sister-in-law's family. So we cater to everything. We have gluten-free bread out. We have gluten-free options every day. If there's allergies or issues, as those come to us, we make sure that we've got those. For students with severe allergies, we actually will bring you your own plate out of the back to make sure that we're abiding by all of those dietary restrictions. So we certainly can do any and all of that. So if you're sitting there going, my student maybe has these issues, know that we have that option for you. Yeah. And those are brought to us, the disability service here at UE lets us know. And if you have a student who has any of those types of needs, please have that student just come and see me, and we can certainly talk about it. And then normally we have like a meeting the first day. So the first week, I'm almost always there. So if you have problems or questions, or your students have problems or questions, they find me. I'm a friendly face, I'm a known face, you know me, they know me. It's one of those things where they're figuring out the manner, and they can always find me. So we do a lot of one-on-ones in the cafeteria. So it's nothing to even worry about. We certainly can do all of that for you. Yeah, that's a good one. A few other things about life in the manor. We have a nurse that's there every morning, Monday through Thursday, and that's included in your fee. So the nurse is there should your child get the sniffles or a sore throat or have any other issues. The nurse is available. She's wonderful. I've gone to her myself, and she's in a little office downstairs, and she is just a wonderful, warm person, and will work with your student on any health issues. If it's something the nurse can't handle, or the nurse, we need a prescription, there's a doctor's clinic in the next village. So in England, a doctor's clinic is called a doctor's surgery. So if we say we've taken your child to surgery, it does not mean we took your child to surgery. If you have surgery in England, you say you're going to theater, right? So if we say your child went to theater, they didn't go see a play. They went to have surgery, but if we took them to the surgery, they just went to the clinic. So the doctor's surgery, right, which is just a clinic with like a whole bunch of general practitioners in it, we have an agreement with them. So the nurse will call the surgery, right, and talk to the doctor, and the doctor will set a time, and then if we have a driver at that point, we'll take your student down there. If we don't, the taxi company charges 25 pounds to go. And then the consultation is at no cost. The doctor will see you. There's no charge for that. And if there is a prescription that you have to have, the pharmacy is actually in the doctor's office. So you get the prescription and you walk right out to the pharmacy, which is in the lobby. And every prescription in the UK, I believe right now, they cost £6.75, which is around $9. So it doesn't matter what you get. They're all the same price. And you can just pay that right there and then go back to the manor. Yeah. So that, for all of those little things that maybe you need, and I personally have been both to the nurse at Harlaxton, I've personally been to the doctor in the local village. Yes, I quite infamously hit my head at the manor and ended up at the doctor's office, and she was lovely, and they all took very good care of me, and so I can tell you that I have personally done all of those things. In addition to that, we have a counselor who's there in the evenings, so students who perhaps are used to getting counseling here or are homesick or having trouble adjusting, the counselor is run on an anonymous schedule, so you go and you tick a box, you don't write your name down on a sheet, and then the counselor's there to see you in the evenings. Those hours are usually Mondays and Wednesdays in the evenings, and so the counselor's there on site as well. And she also is lovely and has been with us for quite some time. Yeah, what else do we have at the manor? So, yeah, we have a nurse, we have a counselor, the shuttle service. Oh, yes?
If your child's on a current prescription,
Yeah, great
and they
question.
take, there's no restriction, and if we can get
I
a 3
love
month
this
supply,
question. I love this
Supply
question.
won't be long enough.
won't be
I
quite
love
long.
this question, yes. So, if you have a child who's currently on a prescription, the best thing to do is to start working on this now and to speak to your physician to see if you can get a 90-day supply of the medication, and then to speak to your insurance, because sometimes with insurances, if you can show them a plane ticket, they will give you like a special exemption to buy 90 days. So I hear from people all the time, well, my insurance will only let me get 1 month at a time. And I'll say, have you called them and told them that you're traveling for this long and you have a plane ticket, you have this information, and sometimes they'll give you a 90-day waiver and you can buy that. Students need to take that in their carry-on, and they need to take it on their person. So don't put it in your bag that may, end up in, hopefully it ends up right with your child, but if the medication's in it, that's not good. And also keep them in their original bottles. The Border Patrol does not like a Ziploc bag of pills. And have your doctor write. You remember when we used to get like written prescriptions? Have your doctor write a prescription, okay? Even though you're not taking it to the pharmacy anymore, that written prescription is really, really valuable, and it's valuable for 2 reasons. Let's say the prescription runs out when the student's halfway there, or halfway through the time there. So there's 2 things that can happen. What can happen is that your student, because they are fantastic, has gone the 2nd or 3rd week and seen the nurse and said, I have this prescription, here it is written out from the doctor, and it will run out on this day. And the nurse can call the doctor in this village and say, we have a prescription for X, and that's the same thing as X in the UK, and so the doctor will write another prescription for the rest of the time. And then your child will pay the £6, 25, 75, whatever it is right now, and get the rest of that prescription. It is illegal for you to send a prescription to another country, right? It is illegal. Now, I'm not saying people don't do it. I'm just telling you that if you go to the post office and you say, I would like to mail this bottle of pills to my child, they cannot take it, nor should you are not legally allowed to send it, because you are taking drugs, kind of sending drugs across borders, okay? So if you have this case and you know that it's going to run out, if you're visiting, you put that refill in your suitcase when you visit. If you're not visiting, have your child go to see if they can get the same prescription. 99% of the times we can get you the exact same prescription, and it's no problem at all. And if not, and you decide, and I don't know anything about this, you decide to send that prescription, when I have seen prescriptions actually arrive, and I am no way recommending this, I'm just telling you, I have seen prescriptions come, they tended to be in boxes with other things, if that makes sense. So it wasn't like an envelope with a pill bottle, it was like a box of Lucky Charms and a teddy bear, and maybe the prescription was in the box as well, and that went through customs. But it is illegal to send it technically even in that box with Lucky Charms, but please know that. So this is a question you'd want to start working on now with your physician and also with your insurance company, and just to let your student know that. 99% of the time we can get that same prescription. It's easy to do. The nurse is happy to help with that. It's a great question. Other questions like that? Yeah.
It's not good. As far as exchanging money, should they do that prior, or will there be someone at the manor to, or was that?
We're gonna,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Let's go back and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So there's a shuttle service. So I told you that the local town, right, which is called Grantham, it's like 3 miles as the crow flies, but it's about an 8-10 mile drive, like when you drive it on the roads. So we run a shuttle, and that shuttle during the week goes every hour at 10 past the hour, and your student can ride that shuttle no problem. It's included in their fees. We don't allow big suitcases on the shuttle, but when they're traveling during the week, they can take a backpack on the shuttle, and we're happy to drop them at the train station, or the shuttle goes to the bus station in downtown Grantham, which is where all the shopping is. So the shuttle runs till about 5 at night, and then after that, if you needed transportation in and out of Grantham or to the train station, there's a taxi company. It's called Streetcars, and we have a contract with them, and the cost back and forth is £6, so about $9, and the taxi company comes and goes all the time. We know all the drivers. When they pick me up, it's like, hey Holly, guess what's going on? We saw so-and-so, we saw so-and-so. So it's a company that we know really, really well. But during the day, the shuttle service runs back and forth, and that's one that most students will take all of the time. There's also 24-hour security at the manor, so we have security guards there. So we have a receptionist who works till 5 p.m., Caroline. After that, our security guards come. They're there all night. The telephone is answered 24 hours a day. Someone's up, they make rounds around the manor, and they watch the drive. We are a private property, and you cannot come down our driveway. Our security guards will be all over you. My family, who lives 4 miles away from the manor, tried to come down the drive once on a surprise to see me. The security guards stopped them before they hit the gatehouse, and they were out there, and you would have thought that it was Fort Knox in there. And they kept saying, no, we're Holly's family, and the security guard was Grumpy. One of the security guards, his nickname's Grumpy, but he's not grumpy at all. And Grumpy had them up against the house saying, how do you know Holly? I don't think you know Holly. What's Holly's birthday? You know, so it is very secure. I can tell you that they would not let my family in. I eventually ran out and rescued them. And to this day, it's quite a joke at the manor how my family got frisked by the gatehouse trying to come in a surprise to see me for lunch. So that's very, very good security. There's cameras almost everywhere in the UK. There's cameras in the manor. We know who's coming down the drive. We watch all of the doors, and that's watched 24 hours a day. There are RAs in the hallways, so students can apply to become an RA. The RAs do things like RAs do here, where they are the first point of contact for all those little things like locked out of my room, or my radiator's not working, or I'm missing this or that. But certainly also a point of call for sicknesses and problems. Each of your students will be assigned a mailbox, so you can mail things, and we'll talk about that a little more in a moment. But if you, did you click on that one?
Yes, I have that.
Oh, so we're going to show you a top secret thing that I promise you will come in handy. So actually on our website, we actually have here on one of the pages the mailbox, the exact mailing address, and the mailbox numbers of the students. So you would be able to find your students and mail them this package that you want to mail them, full of those Lucky Charms that they're missing. And so we're able to point you in that direction as well today. So students do have mailboxes, can receive packages. I can go back to the PowerPoint. And then we do, like I said, have the receptionist who's there. And we have the student development office, and I've mentioned the church. Like a town in there, isn't it? Any questions about any of those things? move on to things, the real things you want to know. How to get money, how to make phone calls, how to send things, and about this great Wi-Fi. Money is probably the #1 question we get asked. What do we do about the money? So when your student arrives at Heathrow, typically they don't really need any money at that moment. We typically bring them together, they get on the shuttle, they're tired, they get free Wi-Fi. So some people do like to give their students a little bit of money before they go, or change a little bit of money. You can if you want to, but it's not necessary. There's not a lot to buy that day. So in Britain we do use the British pound. I've got some here to pass around. Don't worry, it's not mine. I asked my husband to empty his wallet before I left, so we won't be missing anything. We have a £5 note. That's worth about $7, $7.50 right now. We have a £10 note. That's worth about $12, $13 at the moment. We have a £20 note, so that's worth about $24 at the moment. They all have lovely pictures of the Queen on them, and the £5 note is actually a newer note, which is kind of an interesting one with Winston Churchill on the back. So feel free to have a look at those and pass those around. There are bigger notes. You can get a £50 note. Occasionally you get a £100 note. They're yellow. You won't see them very much. In terms of change, the British have a lot more change than we do. I actually did not have a £2 coin today, but there's a £2 coin, so a coin that's worth around $3. This is a £1 coin, so they don't have a dollar bill. They have a coin. So this is kind of like a dollar, but it's worth like $1.25. There's a 50 pence, so they're not cents in England, they're pence with a P. There's a 50 pence coin. There's a 20 pence coin. There's a 10 pence coin, a 5 pence coin, and then there's a 2 pence coin, right? The nursery rhyme with 2 pence in it. And then, just to make it confusing, when there's only one, it's a penny. So it goes back to being a penny. And in British English, it's also confusing because it never really goes plural. So I can have £1, or I can have £5. But you never have £5 because that would be weight, right? So, oh, that costs £20. So it's kind of an interesting one. So yeah, have a little look-see at those. They're really beautiful. And you can see what your children will be spending and what they'll be doing. So this money is good in the UK, so it's good in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Scotland actually has its own money that doesn't have the Queen on it, but by legal tender they have to take this money with the Queen on it. So your student doesn't need any money necessarily to just arrive at the manor, but once at the manor there's a couple options. So if your student is carrying cash, dollar bills, we run an exchange at the manor. So they can go to the business office, give us the $100 bill, and we will give them pounds. It's based on the rate of the day, so I can't tell you the rate. That is an option a lot of people like, and it's always open when we get started. The other option is that there's an ATM at the manor. So the ATM itself doesn't charge a fee. Your bank may charge a fee, but the ATM itself does not charge a fee. I get money out of it all the time at the manor. It's safe, it's locked up, it's not an open ATM to everyone. It's just there in the manor, right by the elevator on the first floor. So most students will have some money when they get started, so they'll either withdraw some from the ATM or they will have exchanged some up at the exchange. So while your students are at the manor, do they need money? What do they need money for? I've told you there's 3 meals a day. I've told you that all of the activities they have, there's really no cost for that. But they do always manage to find some ways to spend some money. And the #1 way is pizza. Pizza delivery. There's a roaring trade from a place called Pizza King. And I mean roaring. It's like Pizza King lives at the manor. So students order, it's true, isn't it? That's why she's
really laughing. is true. It's really true. People order pizza all the time.
It is, I don't get it, but people love this pizza. I guess that if I were 20, it may have been my thing, but they order a lot of pizza from Pizza King. There's also a drinks machine, like you can buy a soda, and there's also a candy machine. And then we have a little boutique where you can buy those sweatshirts and t-shirts that say Harlaxton. And that's really what students will spend money on during the week. So during the week at the Manor, it's kind of really not a lot of extra money, and if they're not roaring trade in Pizza King, it's really not a problem. But then they'll need money for the weekends when they travel, and that's really where we get into the students spending more money. So students, for the most part, if they're traveling obviously within the UK, they'll spend these pounds that you see here that I'm passing around the room. Once they move into Europe itself on the continents, most of the time they'll spend euros. So most of the time they'll spend a different currency, and that currency is called the euro. And they can also get that currency at the airport or at the train station if they're taking Eurostar. So they can also get it out of ATMs when they arrive, and sometimes even out of ATMs before you leave. So how is it best to manage money at Harlaxton? First and foremost, you should 100% have a conversation about the type of credit card or debit card that your child is taking with them. And that conversation should start with a phone call to your bank to ask what the fees are on that card. Banks are all different. I guarantee you every person in this room has a different fee based on the kind of account you have and the bank you have and how that works. So that should be the first conversation you have. Call the bank, go into the bank branch and say, my son or daughter will be in Europe. We want to take this card. What's the fee every time he or she takes money out of an ATM? And if they say to you there's no fee, then typically what they're doing is giving you a different exchange rate than you might see as the lowest exchange rate on the market. So there's usually always some type of fee. Sometimes it's hidden in the exchange rate. So if they say it's no fee, then you might ask them like, well, what exchange rate then is it based on? So I take my ATM card, I go in Harlaxton Manor, I put it in, use it just like I use it here. The only difference is it asks me how much money I want in pounds. If I say 100 pounds, 100 pounds comes out of the ATM to me. And then on my statement here in the US, that's converted, right? And it tells me how many dollars that was. Last time I did it, 100 pounds was $129. So you can certainly just withdraw money like that. Same thing happens in Europe, only it comes out with euros. If your bank charges a heavy fee and you are sort of on the fence about that, while we don't officially recommend anything, I would tell you perhaps to look into Bank of America. Bank of America has a relationship with a bank in Britain called Barclays, which is a very common bank. And they do not charge fees when you use the Barclays ATMs. So some people will open an account just for the semester and use a Bank of America card and try to exclusively use it at Barclays. And they have these partners all through Europe. So there's a partner like that in Spain and a partner in France. So you're avoiding a lot of those fees. But I would start with that conversation about what's the fee on this. And the second conversation I'd have with your student is, what is our budget? And I might even say, what is our pizza budget? What is our travel budget? What is our budget overall, right? So I would say those are really important conversations to have with your student because, yeah, you know, that pizza habit, if it turns into every night and then a lot of travel, it can definitely be something where maybe you're spending more than you think. Yeah.
Would they take the credit card, like for the pizza place, or would they go to the Walmart equivalent store to use it?
Absolutely. So just like here, almost everywhere takes a credit card or a debit card. You can spend just like you spend here, basically. The difference made would be, though, if you are spending a lot and there's a lot of fees involved with your bank, then that's obviously running up the price quite a bit. So that's why it's really important to check with your bank. But absolutely, everyone will take those cards in the grocery store. They'll take them. You guys pay for pizza more in cash, though, don't you?
Yeah, usually
Yeah.
they prefer cash because it's just like a driver who comes
Are
in.
the prices the same regardless of whether it's cash or credit or?
They are.
I know in other parts, some parts of Europe, that's not always.
They'll add some. No, the prices are the same. The way that the pizza works is there's a free telephone in the Manor. And you dial Pizza King and you order, and then you go stand outside, and then the Pizza King pulls up and you give them, it sounds like really like like a spy operation or something when I describe it like that. You sit outside and then you give them the money and you get the pizza, right?
Yeah. It's just like ordering pizza here.
It sounds so much more.
Why is the
dramatic.
pizza so popular?
I really don't
Is
know.
it because of the food in the cafeteria?
I think it's just partly because the cafeteria hours are like more limited. So that's part of it. Is like people are like up studying and it's like 9 p.m. and they're like, we need more food. Let's order pizza while we finish studying. That tends to be a fairly common one because there isn't food at the manor later. And for some reason, everybody just loves Pizza King's pizza. I really don't know. I thought it was okay.
Is it the same as Pizza King in the U.S.?
No, it isn't. It's different. But it's pretty good. British pizza is a little different from American pizza.
British pizza
so-
is different from American pizza.
But it's really popular, and it's cheap. That's the other thing. It's like a pizza from Pizza King does not cost, well, seemingly doesn't cost you that much money. So it's like £3 or something for like a pizza. So, yeah.
I promise you.
Have you found credit cards that are not accepted, like more?
Discover is not widely accepted, that's true in the UK, but a Visa, MasterCard, even I use American Express a lot, and it's accepted almost everywhere. So I would say, first and foremost, have a conversation with your bank about the fees. Secondly, have a conversation with your student about the Pizza King budget. You can say, I know about Pizza King. And have a conversation about their travel budget. And then from there, make a good plan moving forward. And honestly, most of our students will withdraw money from the ATM, and they'll spend that money on Pizza King, and they'll use their credit cards like they use them here. And so those are the places to start thinking about money. And you also need to let your bank know you're traveling, because a lot of times when you go to use the ATM at the manor, your bank will go, wow, this is way outside of your normal spending patterns, right? We're going to turn this off because it's fraud. And then the next thing you know, your student is without a card because they turned off the card and they're trying to mail you a card and you're trying to mail it anyway. So make sure to call them and tell them where you're traveling and when and the dates. Yeah.
Well, with the ATM you have there, is it affiliated with any ATM networks that might be
It
over
is
here?
not. It is not. It is not affiliated with any networks at all. But if you were, say, to get the Bank of America card, there's a Barclays in Grantham, and there's like a Barclays on every corner in London. Yeah, it's a big, big national chain.
When we traveled, in some cultures, tipping is customary. Is tipping customary in the UK, or how does that work? Thinking about the Pizza King guy.
Yes. Did you tip Pizza King guy?
I don't think we did.
I don't think the students ever tip. So this is a very interesting question.
Don't tip
They
me
don't
either.
tip either.
It really has nothing to do with it.
This is a really interesting question. Yeah, this is a fun one. If my husband were here, he would tell you that you should always tip 10%, like in a restaurant or at a pub, that's really common. I guess sort of like here, I guess people always say like a buck of beer, people say a pound a pint. That makes sense? So you tip that £1 coin that's going around, you would tip that for a pint of beer. So it is kind of customary to tip, although people are paid very different wages in the UK. I don't think the students probably have much of a culture of tipping.
I mean, you typically when you go to a restaurant or to a pub or anything, it's just like Pizza King has a delivery fee, so like it's included. That's why we don't tip for that. It's not because we're terrible, I promise.
Yeah.
But for most, like when you go to a pub or to a restaurant,
Yeah,
I
maybe a
usually
10%
Because
tip.
I usually like use my card and just like do the 10% tip. So.
Yeah.
I didn't see like, do they have like a place to keep food that like when they go on the shuttles, can they get like snacks?
Oh,
and things
great
to keep that
question.
in their room? Do they have microwave or fridge like in your?
So on each floor of the manor, there's a community fridge. It tends to be full of pizza boxes. But there is a community fridge. There are not fridges in the room, nor can we rent them. And there is not a microwave except in the cafeteria, so you could bring something down and microwave it, but there aren't microwaves or anything available. Part of the reason we do that is to just avoid any fire risks and things in the manor. But typically, students can buy things then that are not refrigerated. So, potato chips or granola bars or maybe a box of cereal, all of those things they're welcome to have in their room. So they can buy things to eat in the evenings, other than the pizza, but this is a very popular thing, yeah. Other questions would be great questions. So money, so that's what we would encourage you to do. Now the phones are probably as confusing as the money. So when your student goes abroad, most of the time, if your student has a smartphone, which I think they all have now, your student can use Wi-Fi, and they can use that Wi-Fi basically anywhere to do just about everything. So the Manor is completely Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi everywhere in the Manor, and it's good Wi-Fi. So the students can really do everything at the Manor. The UK has Wi-Fi just about everywhere. So most students, what they'll do is they'll just pretty much live on the Wi-Fi. So they'll turn their data off and just turn on the Wi-Fi, and they'll just connect to the networks and they'll use their phone. There's a couple options beyond this that we really recommend. So what we do recommend is that your student also get a SIM card from the UK. And I'll explain why. So almost every phone right now is unlocked. So an unlocked phone means you can change the SIM card and the phone won't freak out. If you have Verizon, all of those are unlocked. If you don't, you can call your carrier and you literally say, is my phone unlocked? When I land in the UK, I change my SIM card to a British SIM card. And that SIM card is a pay-as-you-go SIM card, and I put 15 pounds worth of credit on it. And that lasts me, that's like unlimited phone and text, and I think 4 gigs of data. Okay? These SIM cards are really easy to get. So that first day when they're at Asda buying that pillow and towel, there is also like 3 or 4 companies in Grantham that are very happy to give you a SIM card, and then you load credit on it. And we recommend that they do that, and here's why. It's fantastic when they have Wi-Fi and you can communicate, but let's say that they travel and they don't have Wi-Fi and something were to happen. This happened to us a couple years ago when there was the incident in Paris. And the students did not have a UK SIM or an international plan, and they were not in Wi-Fi, and their phones didn't work. And their parents were trying to call them, and the call won't go through. And you do not want to be in that situation when you can avoid it for 15 pounds. You're talking $20 to avoid that. So we recommend that the students get the SIM card. Mine is from a company called EE, which stands for Everything Everywhere. It's a very, very popular company in the UK. It literally, their shops all over the place. There's one right in downtown Grantham, and your student can walk in that first day with their phone, and you literally just hand the phone to the nice man, and he'll put the SIM card in it and load the credit for you.
When I spoke to AT&T, though, they said you cannot do this unless your phone is completely paid for.
Okay.
You
so,
can't be on a payment plan with your phone, like a 2-year plan.
Right. So my phone is Verizon, and I'm on a plan, and I do this like every time I travel every month.
Your phone is paid for, or it's not?
But you already own your phone.
You already own your phone.
So you can definitely get a phone in the UK, or you could get an older phone that's unlocked and do this.
They said to just buy a burner phone. Right
Yeah.
now.
And really, honestly, it's a great idea, because when we have these issues and the parents couldn't reach the students were fine actually, and the students all followed our emergency plan, came back to the hotel. But until they came back to the hotel and got on Wi-Fi, nobody could reach them. And we just don't want you to be in that position when for $20 or maybe a burner phone for another $10 or $15 you could avoid it. Yeah.
So will this UK SIM card, does it work in Spain? Does
Works
it work?
all over.
Okay, so it's really not just
All
UK,
over.
it's the whole.
Absolutely.
Europe.
So European Union laws require that everything works in every other European Union country. And they're still part of it now. We haven't Brexited.
I was gonna say, so Britain's still included for now?
Yes, for now. So my phone, I go to France. I have a really good friend who lives in France, and I go see her baby all the time, and my phone works. I get on the channel, and all of a sudden I'm on a French network, and it works just the same. Yeah.
Does that $20, is that what buys you the unlimited text and
Yep.
calling?
So it was 15
And 4
pounds, yeah, which is like $20 right now. Yeah. But they can go in to the shop, and it's literally that easy. You hand your phone to the man, they're very happy to help you. To me, this is one that's really, really important to parents. Your students don't always get our point when we say this to them. And we will say this to them in class. We will say, if there's an incident and you're out and you don't have Wi-Fi, your mom and dad will worry. And they may think, well, that SIM card is the same price as Pizza King. right? So mom and dad, I need your help. I need your help. I need you to say, I'll give you both Pizza King and the SIM card. Because in those moments are where we've really had the hardest times. Most of the time they're so well connected, they have Wi-Fi everywhere. But in those moments, that $20 will mean the world to all of us to be able to reach them very quickly. And when they have that data, we actually have a check-in system now they're enrolled in. And their phone, a message will come up, it will just pop up right on their phone, and it has a box that says, are you okay? And you check a green check for yes, or a red X for no, I need help. And if your student checks no, I need help, that message will come to a team of about 8 people immediately. And we will reach out to your student. I get them night and day, not that I need help, so I get the messages night and day when there's something's going on around the world. So please know that that data plan helps you there too. But I need your help with this. We will tell your students this, but I need you guys to really, really reinforce that with your students, or know that it was an option, and in that moment, if we can't reach your student, just know that that's one of the things that we struggle with as well. Okay? So, very easy to do that first day. Like I said, mine's on a company called EE. All right, so that's fun. Yes?
And you cover all this, the money, the phones, et cetera, in the Harlaxton class as well?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. We pass around the money. We pass around. I actually have a SIM card. I don't know where it is today. I usually pass one around, and you can see the company and everything. We cover all of this. But a lot of times I think part of the reason we started the parent sessions is because there are things for parents that you feel much more strongly about than the students. The students are like, how do I go to Barcelona? And we're like, you should buy a SIM card. And so it doesn't always come across exactly the same. Yes. So we cover all of this, and you are welcome to see the workbook. It's covered in great detail. All right, sending things to your students. So lots of people love to send something. It's a birthday, it's a special occasion, your student's missing Captain Crunch, your student really loves American peanut butter. I make such a trade. I have a transnational trade alliance with my British friends bringing over Jif Crunchy peanut butter. They love it, and Mrs. Butterworth syrup. They love it. And I get back lovely British things. So there are things that come from America that are amazing, and your students will miss them, and you will want to send them. They are very expensive to send. Very expensive to send. But we recommend Amazon.co.uk, because that is, you can buy all these amazing things, just like those Lucky Charms I mentioned before. I actually have a friend that's obsessed with Lucky Charms, which is why I always use it as the example. I promise you, even though that looks expensive, it's £16.49. See, it never becomes plural. £16.49. That particular cost for a $20 box of cereal would be less than buying it and mailing it from here. Buying it and mailing from here would probably become about a $50 box of cereal. I have a friend who's...
Free UK shipping, but you paid $20.
Yes, yes. So we recommend, if you want to send these things, Lucky Charms, like I said, I just have a friend who's obsessed with them, and Girl Scout cookies, so I spend a lot of time sending these things actually, I send Lucky Charms to France, of all strange things. But certainly, that's actually a pack of 2 there for $20, so your student will be set up for the entire semester. But we recommend that you go on Amazon.co.uk, and then we've shown you how to pull up the information for where to send those packages. Package goes to reception, a note goes in your student's mailbox, and then the student can receive the package. So if you're looking for a birthday gift, if you're looking for a gift just to say we miss you and love you, if you know your student loves that Jif Crunchy peanut butter or those Lucky Charms, whatever it is that you want to send back and forth, we really recommend Amazon.co.uk for that. It's great. And then Wi-Fi, we just talked a lot about Wi-Fi. The Manor has Wi-Fi throughout. It's a fantastic system, very high speed. And then the UK is very connected as well as the rest of Europe. Any questions about those logistics? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Are there normal, like, cereals that you have here in America?
Absolutely.
Just not that one, so they do have a variety of things that we have? Okay.
Yeah, just no Lucky Charms.
Okay.
And they are magically delicious, and my friends love them. There's no Lucky Charms, yeah. So there are things that you certainly can't get, but then there's new things you can try. So we recommend that students really go out and try those new things. But sometimes there's just that moment when you gotta have some Lucky Charms. Yeah.
It says here that sometimes students have to pay a duty on Amazon.co.
Not on Amazon.co.uk, but if you're sending from the States, they may have to pay a duty because when you go to the post office, they'll ask you to fill out a customs form and declare the value of the merchandise. So if you send something to your student and you value it at say $50 to $60, they'll probably have to pay to receive it. So not only will it be very expensive to send it, but then it will be expensive for them to receive it. Whereas if you go just onto the websites there in the UK, then there's no, generally it ships there. It usually comes the same day or the next day. Britain's just not that big, so it gets there really quickly, and they'll have a nice surprise. Amazon is just like Pizza King. They come like every hour to the manor. We know, even I know the delivery man by Amazon so well. All right, where are we? Oh, good, perfect. Shifting gears a little, I want to talk about college-sponsored travel. This is another conversation we really recommend you have with your students talking about travel. So as you know, the Manor runs basically classes Monday through Thursday most weeks, and then students travel to all sorts of locations. So one way that students can travel is to do that with the college trips that we actually organize and you can purchase from us. So right now, we don't have the spring 2018 schedule up. That will go up, we hope it will go up in the next 2 weeks, and then we open for purchases on November 1st. Okay? But we're going to look because the travel is almost always exactly the same as the year before, and the prices are very similar. So we're going to look here at the spring 2017 trip descriptions. So let me start by telling you that we offer travel every weekend. It is very, very rare that someone buys every bit of travel from us. You can, we're happy if you do, but it is rare. The average student buys 4 trips from us. That's just an average, okay? So we recommend you have this conversation. Which trips are you looking at? Every semester, we always start the first weekend in London. This trip, 98% of our students take. I get the weekend checkout roster, and last time when we offered this just a few weeks ago, there were 6 people left in the whole manor. Everyone else had gone to London. This is a great trip, and here's why. We've come together, we've come through that first week, and I've got my new roommate, and things are going well, and then we go to London, and we get a little lost, and we figure out how to get places, and we go to a museum, and we all become a real good community and family together. And that's a ton of fun, and so I would hate for your student to miss out. So if there's one trip I would recommend, it would be this one. So the way it works is when we open, you'll see, when we post these, you'll see all of the information here. So in this one, you can see what it includes. So we're providing transportation, hotel, and admission to Hampton Court Palace, which is a beautiful palace just outside London, very hard to get to on the train or by yourself. You can see where we stay, the Royal National Hotel. It's actually over in Bloomsbury. I stayed almost by it last time I was in London. You get breakfast every day. There's a deadline to book. And then you see the itinerary. So what time we're going to depart, what time we're going to arrive. Then most of there are a few different ones, but most of them have free days so students can go and explore where they are. You'll see a price. This one was £185. You do pay in pounds because you buy these from the manor. So this one is approximately $250 at an exchange rate of 1.35. The exchange rate's been hovering around 1.29, so it's pretty accurate. And at the time you book it, the full payment is required. So you can see everything about the trip. You can Google the hotel, you can see what we're doing, you can have a look at that. So we offer these options, so we offer them as day trips. So for example, this is a Cambridge day trip. Most of our day trips are only £20, so around $22, $23. They're fantastic value. This one in particular is amazing. Cambridge is a beautiful city to walk around in. There's often places that you can go into the college. You also see the American cemetery, and this one is a great value. So there's a couple I want to draw your attention to. So York is a day trip, again £20. So then we come into our first long weekend. So a long weekend starts on Thursday, and we have 2 of them, 2 long weekends. And in the first long weekend, you have a choice between Ireland and Scotland, if you want to travel with us. So there's 2 choices here, and it's about 50-50 what people choose. And that is an option for them to see. So in Scotland, we go to Edinburgh, and in Ireland, we go to Dublin, and then travel around the country. Continuing on, we have trips then North Wales, which is an area in Wales, which is an amazingly beautiful place. Bath and Stonehenge, so you can go and see Stonehenge itself. Bath is an ancient Roman city. Stratford-upon-Avon, we actually go see a play at Royal Shakespeare, and so that's one that's very popular. Lake District, oddly enough, one of our most popular trips. It is an outdoor adventure paradise, so you have all sorts of options to do activities. There's canoeing, and there's this thing called gill scrambling. And gill scrambling is kind of like when you climb up a waterfall. And evidently this is fun, and the students love it. And you like get wet, and it's great. Did you do that?
I didn't do Lake District.
It's fantastic. But students love this one. But it's one people go, Lake District, I don't know. But it's a fantastic one. Oxford is another day trip. You can go see the college. So then we come to the second long weekend. So the second long weekend, there's actually now 3 choices, and I'll talk about the third one in a moment. The first one is Paris, and the second one is Barcelona. So those are options for big trips on those weekends. And I told you there's a third option, and that's an option which we have now, which is called an alternative service weekend. And on that weekend, students can apply to go on Habitat for Humanity build in Europe. And in this semester, it will actually be in Romania. And so I am really biased to this one because I lead it. And when I'm not doing this, I've worked for Habitat for Humanity for 9 years. I built houses in 27 countries, and I actually lead that team of students. I'll be leading a team of students in about 3 weeks from Harlaxton to Portugal, where we work for 4 days building a home. I've built a home in Romania before, and we take the students to do a lot of hard work, but it's amazing. And that trip has an incredibly large scholarship with it, with a generous donor who funds it, and the students go and provide service for the world. So as much as I love Paris and Barcelona, I really love our students being involved. So if you have a student with a heart for service, please mention that to your student.
And that will be the same weekend that Paris or Barcelona?
That's
So
right,
there's
yep.
an option on that.
So it's a big ask for a student. They're giving up Paris or Barcelona unless they travel there independently, but it's an experience which you just can't do yourself. So we go places in Portugal. We go to the north of Portugal, and we build in communities which there are no tourists, and we spend our time doing a lot of hard work and really getting to know local people, and it's fabulous. So that's an amazing opportunity in addition.
And they apply for that just like they do the RAs and the NEDA families.
Yes, so you just don't sign up for that. You apply, you tell us why you want to go, you come to an interview with me, and then we put together a team of students to go. So we usually take between 10 and 16 students, depending on how that goes. So if you have a student with heart for service, send them my way.
Yep. The deadline for that is the 29th of September.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's coming up really quickly. That's why I was like, there's a deadline. So
Are there limited seats on any of the trips, or if they want to go, are they always available?
So I'll show you that in just a moment.
Unless it, like I see on a lot of these trips, it's like free day, free day, free day, which means any of the stuff that's around that area that they want to do, they have to arrange and pay for themselves.
That's correct. So what we do before every one of these trips is we have a trip briefing. So we give them materials, and we talk to them about what's available, how much it would cost, what they might like to do. The professors will come in and talk about what they would recommend, and people who go on the trips as couriers talk about that. We talk about safety, security, rendezvous points if there's an incident. We talk through all of that with them, and then they make their decisions on what they want to do. Most of the time the students have a good idea because they've talked to students who've gone before, and so they have a really good idea what they'd like to do on the trips. And not all of them have free days. This one seems to have a lot of free days
Right.
in it, but not all of them do. So that's something to look for.
Right.
Then down to the Northumberland, another area in England, a little off the beaten path, a great trip. And then finally at the end of the semester, there's the optional Italy trip. So this is completely optional, although it's very popular. So how does this work? So your student checks out of the manor, and they take a small bag with them to Italy, and they leave their big bag at the manor with a tag on it that says, I'm in Italy. And then this particular trip will come back to London Heathrow and the bags from the manor are driven down there to meet your student. So your student, I get this question all the time, like, well, wait, it's the end of semester, I don't want to carry around my 50-pound bag. You don't carry around your 50-pound bag. We reunite you with your 50-pound bag at the airport before you fly home. So we definitely have a whole plan, a whole system that goes around the Italy trip. There's actually two versions of it. One goes to Rome first and Venice last, and the other goes to Venice first and Rome last. They do the exact same things, but some people want to go to Venice first, and some people love to go to Rome first. And so these trips are very, very popular with our students to end the semester. Yeah.
And like, for instance, buying your plane ticket, you have to get, if you want to do this, you get your plane bill. Are you guaranteed to be able to go since you made your plane ticket?
Absolutely. So we can't say that it's guaranteed, but we've never had a circumstance where someone didn't get a space. So there's lots of spaces. These trips have about 150 spaces, and I've told you that for the most part, we usually have around 150 students at the manor. Not every student goes on the end of semester trip. I would say 60 to 70% of students go on this trip. Your student does not have to go on this trip. Your student can fly back to the States. Your student can pack a backpack and grab a train and go through Europe. Your student can head back to a friend's house in another part of the States. But this is an option. It's a popular option, but it's certainly not the only option. So please know that if your student wants to do this trip, you do have to book the plane ticket so it matches. But if your student doesn't want to do this trip, it is in no way the trip that everyone does. It's popular, but it's not one that everyone does. The one that everyone does really is London, and then beyond that, it's a whole mix. So if we go back, can we go back a page and go to travel schedule, Spring 2017 travel schedule. So you'll see here this question I had before. So for example, London trip, you see it was 185 pounds. There are 121 spaces in this semester. So there are always a lot of spaces. If your student gets put on a waiting list, what will happen is we will try and open up more spaces. So rarely is it that we tell a student they can't go. As you look down the list, you start to see that some trips require deposits rather than full payment. So if you look at the Ireland trip, for example, it requires a 100-pound deposit. The way that works is those deposits are refundable until you reach the manor. So if your student, we have students who the first day they go crazy and they put a deposit on everything. And then your student says, I can't go to Italy, I can't go to Ireland, my life is ruined. And then it all changes. I promise you, it all works out, it all changes. So this is why we would encourage you now, have a conversation. Hey, I've been to the parents' orientation and I've seen what the trips are going to be. Trips are the same, right? Maybe the dates change a little, the prices may change a little, trips are the same. I've seen those trips. We should talk about which ones you really want to do. And if your student says, well, you know, I really like to do this one, and this one, then the student books on those, pays those deposits, they know they're getting those. And we don't have quite the bluster of everybody depositing on everything and then making up their mind. Yeah.
How much of this have you presented to the students so far?
The students get this one next time.
They got the schedule, and we talked a little bit about it, but next week we're going to talk extensively about travel and how they book these trips and how they work and how to book independent
So
travel
they'll
as
go
well.
back and start hammering on right now.
Maybe not. They might not have a total idea. We've covered the schedule, so they know when the trips are.
Okay, so they're not.
But they haven't seen all of this just yet. It's in their book, but.
Yeah. And we really love to have, for you guys to have those conversations early on, just because it gets them to really start thinking about what they might like to do. And we cover all of this with the students. In fact, your students will make a budget. Your students will make a budget for what trips they want to take from us. They'll make a budget with what trips they want to do independently. They'll do a practice trip independently, like booking it and the pricing and how that works. They'll do all of these things. But we love for them to think about what they're interested in and why. It's actually one of the questions that we've asked them in the reflections. Where would you like to travel and why? And sometimes students, they're great. They say, I want to go to Ireland. Our family's originally from Ireland. It makes a lot of sense for me. I took an Irish lit class. I loved it. And sometimes students say, I don't know. I'm going to book everything. And then that creates more chaos in the system. You can do it though, but it creates a little chaos. Yeah.
So right now, my daughter is saying after, Harlaxton, she wants to do independent travel. She wants to walk the Camino de Santiago, actually.
I walked the Camino of Santiago about 3 years ago.
By yourself?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
She'll need to talk to you.
It was fantastic. She's welcome to talk to me.
My question is her luggage. She's obviously not going to take that on the
That's right.
walk.
Yep.
What,
She's welcome to store it at Harlaxton.
and
So she has to go back to Harlaxton to get it, but she's welcome to store it there.
is it possible to send it?
It is possible to ship it,
Okay.
yes.
Is it possible for it to go back with Italy people if one of them's her friend and can take it back on the plane with her?
So the way they're labeled, you could label it as it going back to Italy. If it's a second suitcase for someone, it would probably incur a fee.
Yes,
But if
then
you
that
were
would
willing
be
to
the
work
way-
with them on it, you could do
Okay.
that. If she wants to go back, a lot of people just love to go back to Harlaxton for that last day and say goodbye to all of us and grab their suitcases. I've been there in the summer when students have come back, and it's fantastic. We hear all about everything they've done and how much we love it. And if your daughter would like to talk about the Camino, I did walk it a couple years ago. Yeah. Yeah. Well, lots of hands. Yes.
For independent,
Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
You would pay with my credit card, right?
Absolutely. You pay on my credit card and an online system. Yeah.
for independent travel, if they're setting things up, how easy is it to set it up to get to London, either train station or Heathrow, and what is the cost?
Great question. So it's actually very easy because the train that goes to Grantham, our local town, is a direct train to London, right to the city center and to a station called King's Cross. I buy these tickets all the time. The average ticket is £12 to London if you buy them in advance. If you walk up and buy them the moment the train's going, they can be 50, 60 pounds. So we really recommend they plan, and we'll be covering that in the classes. Once they get to London, for example, they can go to any of the London airports on the tube. So that's the underground system in London. That typically costs between £4 to £7, depending on the time of day. It changes cost. To other airports, so for example, if they're going from one of the airports kind of outside of London, like Stansted, where Ryanair goes from a lot, that one you can just take a direct train that goes through Cambridge. So you actually go from Grantham to Cambridge, change, and you end up right at the station. And I travel like this all the time. I do it myself. It's very easy to do. I do it as a single female. I take my bag and I take these trains all the time. So it's very easy. But the earlier they book it, it is definitely a cost savings. And the same with flights. Like here, if you decide you're going to go somewhere tomorrow, it's more expensive. Whereas if you look sort of towards the future, it's less expensive. So we go through this with the students. We actually talk about, we have, I think, in that a map of where every airport is, how to get to every airport. We have all of the information about low-cost airlines. We actually have them do a trip where they get from the manor to the airport, to the airplane, then from the other place, how do you get into the city? Where will you stay? How will you book that? What would you do? How will you get back to the manor? How will you ensure all of that happens? So we actually go through that with them all. Yeah.
If you know they're gonna do like independent travel, like that last Italy trip,
Yeah.
my daughter wants to go with her friends to other places in Italy.
Yeah.
So if you just tag their bags to come back, is it a charge or, and then
Right.
can we, if we're paying for a separate flight, should we get a one-way ticket to Grantham and then like whatever city they plan to, that they're finished in, fly home from there?
So you can buy flights into London and out of other cities, and those flights are called open jaw flights, like open jaw, JAW. And those flights typically aren't that much more expensive. Oddly enough, I think people think they are more. The problem with that is getting their luggage back. So the issue would be that it's not, we don't chauffeur around a lot of luggage. So maybe if they have a friend who is willing to pay that and take the bag back for them, but beyond that, they would have to come back to England, and they would have to then come back to Grantham and pick up the luggage. Now, the UK Border Patrol is going to want to see that you are leaving the UK. So you can't really buy a one-way flight and a one-way flight. UK Border Control is going to want to see that you do have a departure date.
They want to see that when you enter the country?
They do,
Just when you enter the country.
when you enter the country.
Right.
And each subsequent time you enter the country, they can ask you.
So does that count, like right now, if I'm gonna book the flight and she books to Heathrow and then flies out to Spain?
Right, right.
Does that count
That's
as a
fine,
round trip?
absolutely. That
That's
counts as a
round
round
trip,
trip.
that's all.
They get in trouble when they bought a ticket into England and they can't prove they bought a ticket home. Yep, yep, yes.
What about parents going to visit?
Yeah. We're going to come to that in just a moment. Hang on here with me. Was there another question? Yes,
Do they need their passport with them every time they travel?
they do. Mhm.
And what do they do with their passport when they're in England? Do they need it around?
They don't need it. They don't need it around England at all. Their ID card from the university is actually an ID card. And in Britain, there's not a real sense or custom of people carrying IDs. You know, we carry driver's license everywhere. In England, your driver's license doesn't even have your picture on it. So there's not a real system. But their school ID will have their picture and will get them discounts and things. But they do have to carry their passport and then an immigration letter, which we will issue to them. They carry that with them all the time when they travel in and out of the country.
When they leave England?
Yeah. Yes.
So on the free days, do they stay in groups or how do you handle that?
So when they're, say, traveling to Italy or something, the students make their own plans, and there's a on-the-move sheet that they sign in and out of. So the person who's the courier with them, so let's say I was with them, would have this sheet, and they tell us where they're going that day. And it's called On the Move, so I'm going down to the Uffizi Museum in Florence, and I'm going to do that, and I plan to come back. 99% of the time, they're always in groups. It's very unusual to have someone on their own. And if we notice that someone's kind of a loner, we definitely work with that student and see if there's something going on. But occasionally, maybe your student really wants to go to a museum and not a big crowd of students wants to go. We have them sign the on-the-move sheet so we know where they're headed to. Yeah, it's pretty unusual.
And so, let's just say you're in Paris for a long weekend. They all stay at the same place?
They do.
And they travel together there and returning.
Yes.
And then they sign in so that theoretically you would know where they said they were going to go. And then you give them information about where to meet up, or if there were an emergency, what they were supposed to do, so that you can kind of keep track of it.
Yeah, and then we have this system on their phone that say something happened, that we would be able to send the message where they checked in that they were safe or they needed assistance. Yeah. And that actually, it's a hard one. It has a GPS locator on it, so we would know where to go get your child, but we can't track your child around, if that makes sense. I can only see the locator if your child tells me, or if your child's involved in an emergency. So I can't say, like, I know today that your child's at the Louvre because I can't see it. But if there were an emergency in Paris and the issue was, if the alert was created, I can't actually see the GPS location of everybody's last phone. But I'm not tracking your child around, I promise. Yeah. Yes.
If they decide not to stay as long, like say in Italy, do they come back to the manor? Is that, I mean,
So if you're with the
provisions
Italy
for them?
trip,
Like-
you go, with the group. Is that the question?
Like at the end of the year, if her and her friends want to go different places in Italy, if they don't stay in Italy as long as the entire group
Oh, I
can come
understand.
back, can they come back like to the manor early, or do they
So
need to stay
no,
the same
we
time?
actually, so after each semester, we actually close for 2 weeks for a deep clean. So there's really nobody staying at the manor. So if they decided to come back, they would probably stay in London, or they could certainly stay somewhere in the area, but we don't rent rooms during that time. Yeah. You can imagine what it looks like when they all move out.
So, do you know, does Find My iPhone work in Britain,
Yeah, absolutely
So-
it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it
Is there
does.
an upcharge for?
That I don't know, but it works. Was there a question?
question?
Was there another question I missed about travel? So yes, so your students get to know all of this, but we love for you to have a conversation that opens November 1st. And then once students have booked on those, if they are trips that have the deposit, they can still change that. We don't recommend that they book a lot of independent travel before they go. And the reason is because all of a sudden I have a new best friend who's from Texas Lutheran University, and another person who says, I'd really like to go to Greece, and then somebody comes in the refectory and says, well, I found a ticket to Greece for £5, let's go. And you're like, oh, well, I'd already booked something. So a lot of times we recommend that they have that. They have a Facebook group where they post on there who's traveling where, and hey, would you like to go to Greece? And people will respond, and then they'll make arrangements when they're there at the manor. And we have a team that's there to help them as well. Any other questions about travel? I know for parents this is one of the scariest parts of maybe Harlaxton, because your student is out and they're out on the weekends and they're finding their way around new places and new languages and new cultures. But it's really the part that when we hear back from students, students tell us was the best thing that had happened to them. And we love it when your student has a problem. You don't love it. But we love it when they get to problem solve in a train station in Rome. We love it when they get to problem solve at an airport in London. And part of that is because they are gaining those incredibly valuable skills that help them really become amazing adults. And when I have lunch with everyone back to the class of 71, and they tell me the same things. The best night ever was that night we could not figure out how to get the train back, and we went and had dinner and we figured it out, and it's a memory for a lifetime. But I understand it's very stressful for you. Everyone's required to check out. There's a weekend checkout system. Everyone's required to check out. They tell us where they're going, where they're staying. Everyone receives the travel alert system that I just told you about, where we can geolocate them in an emergency. And also they can check in and ask us for help. We have an on-the-move sheet all the time asking students where they're going. We know that this is stressful. Oh, hello. We know that this is stressful for you. We know that this is the thing that might keep you up at night, but it is the thing that students report is the absolute best part of the trip.
Excuse me, I'm calling in from the phone, so I'm not on the video, but I'm interested in the independent travel. I just wanted to clarify, when they make independent travel, do they have to check out with you, and do they give you information about where they're going to be? Because I know my daughter wants to go to Greece with friends, and it is making me a little crazy.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody checks out. So whether you're with us or whether you're on independent travel, everyone checks out. If you don't check out by Wednesday, you lose house points. And if you don't check out by Thursday, we hold your dinner. We don't hold your dinner for long, but we hold your dinner. Yes.
Right, okay. And they get the travel alert for whatever city they're going to. So you know where all the students are all the time.
I do. I do know where they are. It's a lot of responsibility as she said it. Yes, I know where they are. I don't track them around. I don't sit in my office and obsess over it and track them around, but I do know where they are. I can look up the weekend checkout right now. I can look up the travel alert system right now. We know. That does not mean I can guarantee everything will be perfect. It does not mean I can guarantee safety, but we have taken every step that we can take. And also, this is an interesting one, and I know we're talking a little bit about safety. There's something else I'd like to mention that sometimes parents don't know that, that maybe will help you feel a bit safer. So, Harlaxton actually has a special status in the UK, and we have a status with sort of essentially like Homeland Security here. So with the equivalent in Britain, we actually have a special status with them where we get weekly updates. This is not something that people in the UK get. We get it at the Manor because we are a special site, because we are a large concentration of Americans. So we actually every week speak with a representative from the UK government, and we hear about any threats, any concerns throughout Europe and throughout the UK. When there's an incident, we receive a phone call immediately.
Okay, that makes me feel better. That's great. It's mostly, the things that are going on over there that's making me nervous. So this does put my heart at rest. Thank you.
Good. I think that's true. If you could see everyone's face in the room, everyone's nodding their head with you. Yes, everyone's nodding their head with you. It's not just you. It makes everyone nervous. But please know we do have a direct line in the UK. It's called Special Branch, and the Special Branch agent, I know him well. We speak to him all the time. The incident that happened last week, we had a call from Special Branch within about 5 minutes with an update. and we take security very, very seriously at the Manor. Your children are my children. And I mean that.
understand.
I mean that.
Thank you.
No, I mean that. I
know
don't.
she'll feel better that I've had this conversation because it's probably going to allow her to go do some of these things.
Absolutely. No, your children are my children. I do all these things myself. I wouldn't recommend anything I wouldn't do myself. And please know that we take this very seriously at UE. We work with them a whole semester. We're really attached to them. And we want them to be safe and happy.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay.
We've got about 5 minutes, and we're almost through.
Perfect. So one other quick thing that you know, we do enroll everyone in the STEP department, the Safe Traveler Enrollment Program, so the UK government knows that they're in the UK while they're there. All right, moving forward to the fun stuff. Maybe you'd like to visit. That is one that would be, that's a really normal one. People come over. How does this happen? So if we have space at the Manor, we'd be very happy for you to stay in one of our rooms. You can do that by emailing reception@harlaxton.ac.uk. That will connect you directly to the Manor, and they'll let you know what's available and the price of it. It's all different prices depending on what's available. So people say, how much does it cost? And it's hard for me to tell you, but they will tell you. If there are no other options, there's no options in the Manor, there are definitely places very close by. The pub at the end of the drive is kind of like a village inn, and it actually has 4 rooms in it, like hotel rooms that are really nice, and you can stay there as well. So that's the closest. You can just walk back and forth to Harlaxton. There's 2 bed and breakfasts in the village that are wonderful. One of them sells jam. I highly recommend it. Tudor Lodge, and she sells Jane's jams, and I recommend the Ginger Peach. She's fantastic. And so that's an easy one. You can walk through the field back to Harlaxton, but it's easier to just come around in the shuttle. So absolutely, but when is a good time to go? People ask me this, one of the more common questions. Long weekends are great because your student has the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But remember that means maybe they're not traveling on one of those long weekend trips. So that's something to talk about and negotiate. We ask that you do not come in the first 2 weeks of the semester. They need to get settled, and they need to get into their own rhythm, and they need to get used to the Manor. But after that, we would welcome you in, and we would love to see you there. Tons of parents visit throughout the semester, so don't think like, I don't want to be the only one, my student's going to be embarrassed. No, we have parents in every week. We love to have parents in. We'll sign you in, we'll give you a tour of the Manor, we'll welcome you, part of the family. So you can reserve that way. And then we also have some next steps for you, some of these things we've been talking about throughout these 2 hours. Things that we would love for you to have conversations with your students about. You know, what are they thinking about those flights? What travel are you planning? And remember, the travel is something that we love for them to think about beforehand. What are your thoughts on your budgets? How much do we have to spend? And that's when your student may say, I think an unlimited budget would be great. And maybe a conversation about what a good budget is. And then some ones that I think are really important. You know, what are you worried about and what are you excited about? Our students, it's a big step for them, and the day that they go, you're not the only person with the jitters and concerns. And so talk to them about that, and also tell them what you're worried about and what you're concerned about and what you're excited about, because those things make a huge difference. I hear so many students that say, I want to take this trip because when my mom was in college, she went to Portugal and she had an amazing time, and she's always talked about it. So talk to your students about those things that you would love to see them do. And another one that just makes life easier is, what's our communication going to look like? Are we going to speak once a week? Are we going to speak every day? What's the idea? Like, let's put a plan together to get started so that you have that opportunity to really, you know, make that connection with your student and have an expectation and to know what that's going to look like, and also how you're going to communicate. How do you communicate with your parents?
I think I used iMessage, and then we would Skype or FaceTime.
Yeah.
So I would like message them occasionally, and then we would Skype like once a week.
Very common. Everybody on the staircase is FaceTiming or Skyping someone. So think about how you're going to do that. And then I think we have one final slide, which is an opportunity for you. It's not a must-do, but it's an opportunity. So I was telling you earlier when the students come in that they get this packet, right? And that packet has their keys, and it has their welcome, and it has their Wi-Fi password. Well, you can also put a letter in that packet. Now, I'd like to just say, I'd love for you to not put a letter in the packet that says, I miss you so much you should come home. That may not be a top tip. My top tip would be to write something from your heart to your student about how excited you are, what you'd love to see, what the semester means to you, how you'd like to communicate with them. Students love these letters. We love these letters. It's a real connection with our families. They come to me, so the way you do it is you write a letter, you put it in an envelope, you put your student's name on it. You put that envelope in an envelope, and then you write my name on it, right, with this address, and you send it to me here at Evansville, and then they actually go over in my suitcase, and I put them in the folders, and then your student arrives at the manor, and they have a letter for them. It's not a big deal. We don't say anything about it. So if you're not a letter writer, don't think your student's going to not get a letter and be upset. Partner schools don't offer letters. This is for UE parents. It's special. You're our family, and we'd like you to have this opportunity. So please know that this is an option, but we do need those letters by December 1st. So if you'd like to do that, you can just send those to me, and I'll make sure they get to your student. 2 hours has flown by. Wow. So, yeah, any final questions?
If you're doing independent travel, are there any issues with them getting a hotel room and only being 20 years old?
Typically, no. They can just book them online, and a lot of our students do use hostels, which are made for youth. And so typically we have no problems with that. So let me just say thank you. It looks like, yes. They've had that since August. They've had that since August. It's in their online account. We emailed them in August. We've emailed them twice subsequently, and they'll have a follow-up this week as some of the deadlines are coming up. So your students have had that now for probably about 6.
So what date do they fly?
Yeah. So you can look on the college calendar. You want to pull up the college calendar? Yeah.
They have to arrive on January 4th, and then they leave on either the 19th or the 29th of April. I just know that because I went over it with them all in
What's the price of it? Do you know what the price is?
There's 2 different prices. I don't know it off the top of my head.
But it is in the
It's absolutely in the information. Yep. So, thank you all for coming. Kaylin and I will be here for questions. Please come up and talk to us if there's anything we can do. But thank you so much.
You have the best job in the
Everybody says that to me. I think I have the best job in the world.
He has the information. He's had it for 6 weeks. That's exactly